Warning: the following video contains explicit language which may be offensive to some viewers or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
Hello and welcome to this rabbits video. This is season 2, episode 2, part 1. The title of the episode is Play the Game, Find the Game. It should be interesting and enjoyable. So let's get into it.
Richard Shaver was born in Pennsylvania in 1907. He married one of his fellow art students in college, had a daughter, and took work as a welder in an automobile factory. While working in the factory, Shaver began to suspect that people were following him. His paranoia was most likely due to a combination of factors, including the recent death of Shaver's brother, the Great Depression, and an undiagnosed mental illness that involved some level of paranoid delusion.
Or maybe that's what we're being led to believe.
But whatever the circumstances, Shaver was convinced he was being followed. His delusions became so intense that his wife was eventually forced to have him committed to a mental health facility. Decades later, Shaver described the incident that had put him in the hospital as nothing more than a severe case of heat stroke.
As someone that has had heat stroke, no.
Either way, the exact length of his stay in that facility is unknown. When Shaver's wife Sophie died, her parents took custody of the couple's young daughter rather than allow Richard custody. When she was old enough to ask, her grandparents told her that her father was dead as well. Richard Shaver was a man without a family.
Yeah, because it never comes to bite you in the ass when you tell somebody that their parents are dead when they're not. It's just, because that can't go wrong ever.
While he'd been working in the factory, Shaver claimed he'd been able to hear the thoughts of his fellow workers via some kind of coil field attunement connected to the welding guns. But much worse than hearing the thoughts, he claimed, was experiencing the telepathic torture sessions he believed he was hearing transmitted from caverns deep beneath the earth.
Sounds completely normal to me.
After his time in the factory and the mental facility, Shaver claims that he traveled the country as a hobo. Whether that's true or not, Shaver's whereabouts around that time are unknown until he pops up again in the early 1940s. In 1943, Shaver wrote a letter to Amazing Stories magazine. In the letter, he described an ancient language he discovered called Man-Tong. Shaver claimed that Man-Tong was the source of all language on Earth.
Kind of sounds kind of Brigham Youngish to me there.
In this language, every sound had a hidden meaning, along with a literal meaning. If you understood Man-Tong and applied a formula, you were able to decode a secret meaning hidden in any word, sentence, or phrase.
So, with this supposed language, you're able to tell two different meanings in the same sentence, which means you have to construct your sentences in such a way that you don't accidentally have a counter meaning to what you're trying to say. That just seems overly complex.
A Amazing Stories editor Ray Palmer believed Shaver was onto something when Palmer claimed he'd been able to find hidden meanings by applying the Mantong formula to several words. In Palmer's autobiography, The Secret World, he lays out many details concerning his correspondence with Richard Shaver. According to Palmer, Shaver sent him a document titled A Warning to Future Man, in which Shaver described advanced prehistoric races who had constructed cities deep beneath the surface of the earth.
Getting into the hollow earth theory there, which is kind of cool. It makes for good cinema and good drama, but scientifically it's kind of absurd.
And then fled our planet due to radiation from the sun. According to Shaver, some members of that ancient race of beings remained behind. Those who stayed here and retained their sanity were known as Teros. Others who remained behind became mentally unstable sadists known as detrimental robots.
Or lawyers.
Or Deros for short. According to Shaver, the Deros degenerated over time into a population of mentally impaired sadists and remained beneath the earth, kidnapping surface dwellers for food or torture.
Sounds like, it just sounds kind of eerie to me. I mean, sounds like the whole Morlocks from the H.G. Wells Time Machine.
Although pressured by his contemporaries to admit that his stories were nothing more than a grab for publicity, Shaver continued to assert their veracity. He went on to claim that the Deros were to blame for almost all human misfortune, from plane crashes to accidental injuries and illness.
Yeah, because taking responsibility for our own actions is, just kind of blasé, unfashionable.
Though most often confined to their dwellings beneath the surface, Shaver asserted that the Deros were capable of space travel, and in their travels, they had dealings with many races of extraterrestrial origin.
Cycle in E.T. at this point, I guess.
Palmer edited and rewrote Shaver's manuscript, adding plot elements that made the material read like a story, rather than a simple recitation of what Shaver claimed were facts about the Deros. Retitled I Remember Lemuria, the novella-length story was published in the March 1945 issue of Amazing Stories. The issue sold out almost immediately.
I have to say, though, even though I made while she was going through this, I was making some rather snide remarks, but, stories like that, she sets up, and stories like H.G. Wells's The Time Machine are all kind of cool. Even though I make a few of these snide remarks like this, time and time again, I'm just being snarky. I do enjoy this series, so, just write it off to me just being snarky and making light of things.
Palmer claimed that tens of thousands of letters had poured in, and that they all supported the truth of Shaver's claims. They too had heard strange voices or had encountered these creatures who inhabited the caves deep beneath the surface of the earth. One letter came to Palmer from a man named Fred Chrisman, a man who would later gain notoriety for his role in the Maury Island UFO incident and the John F. Kennedy assassination.
Yeah, because I guess if you're going to have a conspiracy within a conspiracy, you've got to throw JFK in there. I think that's just kind of American folklore. If you have a conspiracy, it has to tie back into JFK somehow.
Chrisman believed there was a connection between extraterrestrial beings and Shaver's world beneath the world. Another letter came from a man named Kellen Meacham, who was looking for a way to get in touch with Shaver. In his letter, Meacham told Palmer that he believed Shaver's mystery might be connected to ley lines of radiant energy.
Yeah, Meacham is actually if I remember correctly, I think he is a real world person and had some really bizarre ideas out there
that existed beneath our world. Shaver's mysteries, it appeared, were a hit. Richard Shaver's world beneath the world conspiracy eventually entered the mainstream. In the late 1940s, Shaver mystery clubs began springing up all over the world. In fact, Shaver's conspiracy was actually mentioned in Life magazine in 1951. Amazing Stories circulation greatly increased due to the Shaver mysteries. From 1945 to 1948, about 3/4 of all the issues included some type of Shaver mystery content. In 1948, Amazing Stories stopped publishing the Shaver mysteries, which a number of science fiction fans had started calling the Shaver hoax.
which could be interesting. We'll get to see why here in a little bit, but it's we're beginning to get a little bit deeper into the season, into the lore and the mythos.
Shaver, of course, claimed that the magazine was pressured to stop publishing his stories by sinister outside forces.
It's always sinister outside forces, you know? Why can't it ever be sinister inside forces, you know? Just wondering.
The legacy of Shaver's mysteries remains alive today in things like Harlan Ellison's story, The Elevator People, a story about 500 buildings in the United States whose elevators go deeper than the basement, to dark worlds inhabited by cavern-dwelling creatures called the Darrow, a race of evil subterranean dwarves who are plotting to overthrow humanity.
Yeah, they'll team up with Alexis Jones's lizard people and gay frogs to do it too, I guess.
Shaver continued to look for physical evidence to support his wild theories, and claimed he'd found it in certain rocks. Shaver said that these rocks functioned as rock books, and contained drawings, stories, and photographs, all archived using some kind of advanced laser technology he'd discovered.
Which, that would be kind of cool to be able to write a message on a rock and have it in such a way that somebody has to have something more advanced to read it. Like I said, makes really great storytelling, but is, you know, kind of out there. I like it though. It's a great mind exercise, great thought exercise.
Technology that had been created by a race that Shaver now called Atlanteans. Shaver claimed to have accessed his rock books using a stone saw. By cutting special rocks in a specific way, he would eventually be able to reveal images within the fissures.
Now, my question is, how do you tell? I mean, what is the standard by which you would go and tell that this rock is a story rock and this rock isn't? So, you know.
Many years after Shaver's death, his art continues to be exhibited around the world. One show, in Los Angeles in 2010, featured a number of Shaver's so-called rock books that had been discovered in a storage unit in 2007. One of those rock books, a thin sliver of agate, was very interesting.
And we'll go ahead and call this good here for this episode. We'll find out why the agate is important and interesting in the next episode, or in the next installment of this episode, I should say. So, until next time, be good, be safe, be a good human being. Peace.
them. Do you know where your children are?